This is going to be a talk about many things. This has been a more of a challenging one in terms of there's so many things that I could talk about with it, but that's why I decided to start with a divine nugget, and I'm just going to keep it short and sweet and delicious, bite-sized, kind of like nuggets. Now, I've been thinking about it. And there are so many times lately that it's come up. I love it. It's a deliciousness, and it reminds me of talking to my DM, who, at least past versions of him, were always adorably concerned with perfection. And, the irony is that I was too, and I just had a lot of ways of masking from myself that I don't even know how to say it. It's like I was hiding from myself in the positivity of it. Because there really is a difference between like genuinely being realistically positive, like in your own mind, in your own heart, and having that genuine self love versus just saying the words, right? Or just telling other people to do the stuff versus like really practicing what you preach. Now, I heard something once and it wasn't called the 80/20 rule. I'm kind of calling it that. I'm sure somebody else has probably called it that there, so I'm not like trying to trademark it or nothing, but that's how I think of it. And it was funny because somebody said something in my mind I really like it really resonated with me that like a lot of times we get conditioned into this whole you got to give 100% or 110% or 200%, and like that's it's great to a degree. It depends on where you are in your healing cycle. Though for me, like I talk a lot about manifesting with a lot of people, and one of the first things that often comes up is that people feel like to speak positively is kind of a lie. Like you're ignoring the shadowy parts of things. Though genuinely alchemizing things is not ignoring truths. It's actually like manifesting is not ignoring truths. It's focusing on the truths that you want more of. Because like you're pretty much never wrong about what you interpret. The world is what you believe it is. And so the power in it, the secret, if you will, is recognizing that you can change reality. There's some amount of overlap in momentum, when you're getting used to that, especially if your thoughts are really like shrouded in conditioning of negativity. Though what you believe is true is what, like, your brain naturally looks for what you believe. It's called confirmation bias. And so if what you naturally believe is that the world is good and there are lots of opportunities and that you're deserving of them, that you're creative enough to find them, that you're worthy enough of spirit to bring many of them to you, like then your brain, which, your brain is just a brain, like it takes orders from you, the observer of things and the decider, the discerner of things. And so if you tell it to look for those things and you actually believe that they're there, it will find them for you. Like it just naturally happens. And so when we get into a place of like, it's kind of comes from sports is like you got to give your all, you got to give your 100%, you got to give your 200%. It's like saying that you have to do better than your best, which I'm not saying that you can't do that, though a lot of people tend to live in that space where there's this like magical unicorn place that we get to where we can be better than our best, which is like you can always there's always growth opportunities. Like the work is never done. So like yeah, you can always do better than your best, but really it kind of beats up on you when you're constantly feeling like any time that you don't give 110%, then you feel like you're not doing enough. And that can really lead into a lot of codependent stuff too. And like, especially if you hit boundaries and because you're exhausted, because you're always trying to give 110%. And then you're ready to set boundaries in there, then you might like gaslight your way out of it, like do it to yourself, is believing that, well, maybe I didn't give my 110% the whole time. And so I'm going to let this boundary fall, or I'm going to put this thing down because I wasn't perfect. Like perfectionism, no human, no being in this earth, this earth, this universe was not made for perfectionism, right? And So when you start to change that and apply the 80/20 rule, which for me is pretty much anything you want to put it in. If it's, if it's about karma, like somebody asked me the other day, like, do you think it's bad karma to do ABC? And I said, and I love it because I'm a being of shadow and light, and I delight in ego as much as I delight in like the higher mind. I don't let ego control my decisions, but ego is there for a reason. Ego is the reason that you love chocolate Oreos or vanilla ice cream or whatever thing. So like don't just kick it out. But again, there's the 80/20 rule. Like, if 80% of the time I am consciously aware of my decisions and going with my inner being and my higher mind and my heart, 20% of the time I might just say fuck it and be like, you know what? Today is a me day. Today is a ego day. Today I'm going to like just see what ego has for me. I'm going to let it play. And the nice thing about that is like it's kind of like, if you changed your diet to a lifestyle diet where you eat good 80% of the time and then you have like a cheat day. I would change it from cheat day because that like manifests a weird thing. But think about it, like if you have like indulgence day, right? Where you can have what you want and not worry about it, not beat yourself up on it and stuff like that. That's the real trick though. If you can do it without beating up on yourself most of the time, 80% of the time, then it's awesome. It's rewarding. It's great. And the same thing with karma. Like, for one thing, it's not necessarily bad to manifest karma. Most of us think of karma as like, if I do a bad thing, I'll be punished. That's not what karma is. Karma is learning lessons. So, like, if you occasionally do something that is not like fully fitting in with your morality, or if it's in with yours, but you recognize it's not in with somebody else's, and you occasionally go beyond those lines, I don't see anything overly wrong with that because it can bring in color and contrast and even complement to your life. Like you never know. Like that moment that you do it, maybe later that's when you realize that you do it a lot more than you thought, like more than 20%. Maybe that's the learning to see, like, how often do I give myself permission to do it? Is it over the 20%? Do I even want it to be over the 10%? And it's the same thing with manifesting. Like, even the gurus talk about, like, as a human, you're going to have times when you're in drop, when you're in dark night of soul, when you're in ego, when you're doing those things. And the sooner that we get out of seeing that as like a negative thing or a bad thing, to have those experiences with our higher experiences, with the miracles, with the light work, the sooner we find ourselves with fewer of those experiences in the first place, to need to intentionally alchemize in this way. And it's the same thing with everything else, like 80/20 rule. Like, if you have let's say you have a relationship and like 80% of it is pretty darn good and only 20% of it isn't in there. You could apply it any way that you want. Like, if only 20% of it is really, really sucky, you're really not doing all that bad, or I like listening to Esther Perez in it too. She even talks about like, if you're with somebody in like a monogamous relationship and you've been with them say like 20 years and like once in those 20 years they cheated on you, there's really not a reason to get super uber upset about that. There are so many different reasons that could happen, and the only ones that most people get upset about are because they beat up on themselves and they think that it's because they're lesser, and they don't take in the combination of like instinctual, biological human stuff, and then add in the learning along the way. But like, the longer you're with somebody, the more likely you are going to have like moments of infidelity, or time, or times when things are more stressful, or times when your moralities are tested, things like that. Like, a lot of people, I think, get into relationships and think that like they pick somebody who's never ever ever going to hurt them. But the truth is, the longer you're with someone, the more likely it is that they're going to hurt you and you're going to hurt them. The question is, do you want to do the 110% rule, and where if your relationship isn't like 110% of everything you thought it was, that you get rid of it, or you beat up on yourself, or you write it off? Well, you're never going to have a happy relationship. There are no relationships you're going to get into with any other human beings, even 5D beings, or even just with yourself, that is going to be good 110% of the time forever. You know? And so like it's really like the 80/20 rule can be applied in so many different places, and it really, like, it removes that stress of having to be perfect about everything. You don't have to be perfect about everything all the time. And you never know, like maybe even a moment of deviance might take you on some sort of adventure where you are actually catapulted into your light work. You never know. Like, I'm not encouraging like go out and do a whole bunch of like really icky things. Like I said, 80/20. So 80% of the time, my opinion, you should be conscious. You should be metacognitive. You should be meditating. You should be thinking about what you're doing and choosing things consciously. The 20% of the time, just say, fuck it, and go on a road trip and see what happens, you know? Take a risk, try something new, make some mistakes, make some messes. You never know what good may come of that. And if along the way, you can feel like you are doing good most of the time, and like the things that are not like completely angelic are not the end of you as a good person, you're going to find it a lot easier to manifest anything that you want and to enjoy anything that you will have, or have had. All right, everybody, I'm going to leave this here. Thank you for your feedback and comments below, and adding your energy to these videos by hitting that like button. I'll see you in the next video.